Record. Yeah, so we're recording now. Um, the idea of this slide deck is to consider the things that we can do to reduce our incidents, that is our outages for whatever reason, by doing the maintenance that you would need to do to make sure that we don't have that they don't occur. So in other words, the longer things go without maintenance, the more likely it is that you're going to have issues in terms of incidents. And we've actually got a graph that we'll look at in a bit. So we have a fairly detailed and sort of busy diagram here, but the idea of that only is to show you that there are a lot of things to consider in being proactive. Now, I'm sure you understand the meaning of that word proactive. That's doing things before you have the prompt to do them. So, for example, if I said that you were proactive in your study, you'd be the type of student who would look at the course outline and say, I've got this assessment on this day, on this assessment on that day, this assessment at the end of the semester. These are the things that I'm going to do now so that I'm ready for them. I'm not going to wait until the day before and then do something. So that would be, then you would be being proactive. If you spent 2 hours studying that course every night, even though you don't have an assessment until 2 weeks from now, that would be being proactive. And there's lots of other things that you could do to be proactive. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these boxes. They're a little bit sort of hard to read. And as I said, there's a lot of detail there. By the way, aside, we do have some sort of flow going on there. This is not a flow chart. This is a workflow diagram. Did have some confusion in students between that for a workflow diagram. Workflow diagram does require that you have some kind of choices involved, and we had some various discussions about that. All I want you to get from this diagram is that there are a lot. It is something that has been considered in quite a lot of detail. There's a lot of different things that we can do, and we see things like planning, scheduling, procedures that are involved in making sure that we are being proactive. And this is a diagram that I mentioned a minute ago. The idea being that as time goes on, and this could be any machine, you could be talking about a semi truck, or you could be talking about a computer, or you could be talking about your car or motorcycle. But what you find with vehicles or things or computers or whatever is that you go for quite a while at the start when the thing is brand new. It seems to operate within its normal range. After a bit of time, then you find your normal wear and tear is going to take into is going to kick in, and eventually you get to a point where things seem to go up exponentially in terms of repairs that are required. And what usually happens is the people that study this very carefully, if you're talking about vehicles, is they'll sell it at about there, right? Um, but if you're talking about a computer, what the idea being here is that during this whole time here, we're looking at things that we can do to reduce that cost. Now, what we see is if we spend some money and some time, so this is money, we spend some money and some time at the start here when we're not having a lot of breakdowns, we can keep our breakdown costs a lot less. Saves money and saves time over over the total ownership of some equipment or whatever. So there are a number of things that we can do to remind us, to keep us on schedule. We can have sort of regular sort of updates, as it said there. That would be a routine maintenance. So like every weekend or whatever, we can do things to sort of update our systems and make sure that things are running okay. We can have all kinds of administration tools that run remotely to activate patches, etc., on nodes. Um, we can do updates fall within the range of these things that I've just referred to as patches. So we can have two different types of updates there that are mentioned. We could have scheduled or poll driven. So scheduled is like, like at the end of every weekend we're doing that kind of thing. Or it could be that that one is pushed out by the operating system vendor or whatever, that that we actually then send a message to the node, which requires it to sort of download and update. It's a lot better, a lot easier nowadays since that these updates are done over the network rather than having to walk around to different pieces of equipment with various storage devices and trying to do updates that way. And so there's a number of things that are mentioned there that we could be doing updates, software, drivers, and firmware. I don't know what you've learned about drivers when you talked about operating systems that allow you to sort of have, they sort of provide the interface at a software level, don't they? Drivers actually sort of become part of the software. They're certainly part of the software in Microsoft applications, so that your drivers are built in or else built for it. So yeah, firmware, I'm sure you're familiar with that as well. Okay, so a lot of things that you need to manage in your network management in a proactive way. Remember, proactive is that you are not waiting for the incident to occur, that you're preempting the incident, and basically you're doing those things you can to avoid the incident happening. So you're basically short-circuiting the incident, if that's what you. So there's a number of things that we can do. We can reconfigure our BIOSes, keep a review of the status of that. Storage arrays like a RAID, keep them sort of hygienic, I would say, clean, keep the configuration simple. And because as you know, as you add more data from time to time, as you add maybe even more devices to something like a RAID, things could become a little bit sort of less organized. And so have some kind of hygiene on those, keeping things reconfigured and organized. And yeah, so you can have some basic tools. And throughout this course, we've seen a lot of different screens coming from different tools that are used to analyze things on the network. Here's one from Dell, so to help you manage your Dell devices, and it gives you all kinds of graphical information on a screen regarding what's happening with and how you can sort of maintain those devices. So this is for servers. A little bit more on that. So hypervisor server from Dell running that operating system, and some software that you can use to sort of help you manage it. And that's basically the same thing. I'm sorry that this set of slides is really just so small. The thing that you may have already guessed something like this, just like everything else in IT nowadays, it seems that there is a great possibility of outsourcing. So we have everything as a service, right? You can do your hardware as a service, your software, whatever, your network as a service. You can do your proactive sort of maintenance as a service. And so there are companies that will sign a contract with you, and they will manage your proactive sort of maintenance for you. And so they have tools that they can use to remotely access your systems and maintain them. And yeah, so what are the benefits? We've got like 2 slides left, or this might even be the last slide. The idea, hopefully we got that by looking at that first slide. Second slide, which was the graph, remember? So by doing something before we find the incidents occurring, by sort of measuring things and keeping things up to date, we can reduce our downtime. That can also mean that we might reduce data loss, and we provide some hygiene for our system. What I mean by hygiene there, referring to less likely to be exploited, and more organized in regard to our servers and our nodes, and having less bugs and exploits. And that is all that we've got for notes on that topic. I hope that makes some sense to you. Perhaps somebody'd like to make some comments.